One. Graphic design is my passion, Rob. The people can tell from the intro to this stream. Hi.
I'm thrilled to hear that. I can tell.
How you doing? Hello, Rob. Hello, chat. Hopefully this goes well. You can let us know how the audio levels go. Kato is afflicted with the sickness. We wish them well. Last we heard, they were taking the pills to feel better, but also the pills that make... What is it they say that it makes everything taste like not so,
metallic,
not
the metallic taste.
Metallic.
Yeah. So yeah, and then there's the Paxlovid rebound thing, which I'm hoping is less of a. Hopefully that's not as true with the current variants, but who knows?
Have you had to do that?
It's not a fun time.
Have you had to do like the pill? Like I've not had. That's as far as I know. I still not. You know. I'm gonna
yeah. No, I was
everything.
extremely sick with COVID. From Christmas on. And yeah, no, like Paxlovid was amazing. I beat COVID in like a day and a half. It was incredible. And then it rebounded by the end of that week. And I was sick for like 2 more weeks at least. And like it took ages before things felt normal again.
I got sick right before COVID, which in theory could have been COVID, and we don't, and I didn't know it. Although I didn't have any respiratory illnesses associated with it. It was just an enormously bad fever of like 103 for 6 or 7 days. And the worst of it was the similar sort of like rebound effect where I would go hours testing my temperature and it's like totally normal or like slightly elevated, like 99.2. Like you're okay, especially relative to the verge of death that you feel at, 103. And then 2 different times I sat down and be like, I'm not going to take the medicine. I'm going to have a beer. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to watch some TV, but I'm going to test my temperature one last time because I feel okay. And then inevitably it'd be like 102.7. It's like, fuck, I've gotten so used to feeling like shit that I can't even tell what the difference is between like 99 and 102. It was bad. It was bad. But less bad. Well, I don't know. How you this website, good, bad? So HOA, the latest episode, the second episode is up now in theory. Again, we're doing streams ourselves. We're publishing podcasts ourselves. We're doing this all without the safety net that is Ricardo Contreras. But in theory, Foundation tier members should have access to the second episode of HOA, in which I finally bring to a conclusion a saga that is I've complained about on Remap Radio a number of times over the last like 18 months of I need a second car for my family. I got one. I'm sure we'll get into some of that here. What I wasn't expecting, what I wasn't ready for, even though I knew Rob had talked about getting a car, was that Rob would purchase it on a website called carsandbids.com, which is the website we are currently on. For people that are not Foundation tier members, Rob, can you explain where are we? Why are we here?
Boy.
How are we here?
And by the way, Patrick, like we were just sort of in the episode before I really had a moment to ponder whether I wanted to get into this at all, because I feel like admitting that I went on carsandbids.com is like incredibly self-incriminating. I don't know incriminating of what. People are going to get the wrong idea about my finances, I think, from some of the cars that appear on here. Okay, so I think I might have alluded to this in the past, but the story begins with I started getting a little more car curious in the last couple of years and started looking up info about certain types of cars that sounded neat. And
I mean, specifically the way, like, when you've talked to me about it in the past, finding a car you like, right? There's functional, there's, like, when you buy a car, so much of it is contextual of like what do you need, right? Like you and I are like totally different worlds. Like I need something that's like functional and big, like can transport multiple kids, can deal with being spilled on and all those things. You're both like in a different part of your life, but also have a car, right? Like you have a car you can drive. But as we get into in the podcast, just to kind of like summarize high level, like you're not having a very good time in this car. Like it gets you from point A to point B. You're also sharing it with your partner who has to commute sometimes for work. And so you just found yourself in a spot where it's not necessary, but would be very helpful both on a practical level and also once you get past the practicality portion, like, what do I want out of a car? Like, what would be both useful and also like make me happy? Which is like something we talk about in HOA is like the place you're in. And you and I don't commute, right? But cars represent a place you are in that there's functional, and then there are the other parts that are related to like what makes you happy based on the things that are around you.
Yeah, the problem for me is I want a lot of things from a car. Like my wish list is ample, and there are cars that can satisfy that. They cost over $100,000. Like that is there are cars that are like, it's luxurious, but also if you take it on a track, it can go up to like 215 miles an hour. And it's like, that sounds awesome. And then it's like, yes, that'll be $170,000, please. So you begin,
not counting the maintenance and everything that goes with, I think you had told me, which makes sense when it's spelled out, like the rate at which you go through standard consumer brake pads if you choose to take that out somewhere where you're truly hitting the speeds that a car could be capable of.
Right. And so actually, like, legit where this began was a couple years ago. I was like, oh my God. So Gran Turismo 7 also played a part in awakening something, because in particular, one car in that game, the Camaro, sounded so good. And I was like, oh my God, can you imagine driving a car that just sounded like this? You would feel so awesome. Like everything would be great. You'd be thrilled to go anywhere. And so like for a minute there, I was like, maybe I just get a Camaro. Fuck it. Like, it'd be an impractical purchase, but Camaros are so cheap right now. They stopped being cheap immediately as I had that thought. It was like, no, bring them back. And it was like, no, sorry, it's sort of the tail end of, the first couple of years of the pandemic. Everyone is starting to be like, I want treats. I want to get out. I want to have fun. Tons of people are like, I want a sports car. And so I just watched those prices go away and never to return.
Can we find that car on here? Can we show it?
So it's not a super popular, like,
or maybe something in the ballpark just to give people like an aesthetic understanding of.
Yeah, so it doesn't sell that much on this because I think it is. So the car that is like sort of more the collectible version. Damn, this looks like almost the one I built in Gran Turismo, to be quite honest.
Oh, look at that boy.
Yeah, so the ZL1, there's a few things that sound really awesome about the Camaro. One is that by all accounts, despite its appearances, it's actually a really comfortable car in terms of like, driving dynamics, how it handles bumps and, broken pavement. But like the ZL1 is their high performance model, and by all accounts, it's for a fraction of the price of like a Porsche 911, it's actually pretty competitive, in terms of performance with that, which is a crazy buy. Like it's a great what great sports car value you get with these Camaros. This guy's so confident in his Camaro, he didn't even clean it. He just put it out there. He's like, "Fuck it. You want this? You want my Camaro? I just left it out under these branches. You can come.
You must have picked up on some of the strategies or lack thereof of people when they're taking pictures of their car, like the way people, because this is a website for car enthusiasts, right? Like this is like, I care about cars to a degree that is more than just I need to buy a car sort of thing, right? Like I think about cars. I value car aesthetics. And so I find it very interesting then to have someone that would come to a place like this and in theory share similar values, but then like, look, even just look at the trash that's on the front there, like near the gas pedal, like clean it up, man. Like, look, even the little pad there is not tucked behind, like it's just up. Like,
see, when you're a Camaro owner, you live without shame. You're comfortable standing naked before God because you have a Camaro ZL1. I think so. This is a bit of an interesting listing because some people are really precious about how they stage these things. This guy, it's a nice looking car, kind of. It doesn't need that much staging, but the thing is, so This is like twice the money of the type of Camaro that I would have been looking at. The other thing that started to come into focus, specifically with Camaro, let's go back to this camera angle real quick. This doesn't look that bad necessarily, but by all accounts, that is a narrower front window than you think it is. And you get more of a sense of like, you're sitting here, your head is here, your eyes are here. You're looking out through this. You don't see necessarily that well what's in front of you. And then, what's behind you is also kind of hidden. You barely have side windows because they keep raising the door height for safety reasons. So, like, visibility is really bad in these things.
You like to be lower to the ground, right? I believe that's what you said. Like, your preference is in a car to be lower than higher, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's I'm comfortable with being kind of low to the ground in terms of the, like I like a car basically. Even crossovers, I feel like this is a little bit high. The sway is a little bit much compared to a car, and I am just sort of, I like the idea of you sit low in a sports car. That's cool. This might be a bit much. People in our chat at various points were like, "Hey man, you think you want a Camaro, you don't. This is not going to be as good as you think it is, and it's going to feel a little claustrophobic." The other thing that comes into focus as you kind of reckon with, do I want a sports car? Is that a lot of people talk about this as you start getting into people who like live with sports cars. The nature of a performance car is that driven at most road speeds, it's incredibly boring and uninvolving. Like kind of the sweet spot to be is like a car that's fun. Would be a like Honda Civic or something like a sportier Honda Civic. Those tend to have like fun driving dynamics, but because they're not super performance, they don't have a ton of horsepower. The top speed isn't very high. They have fun driving dynamics at like 40 miles an hour, at 50 miles an hour. That's cool. That's neat.
What does that mean? Okay, I know nothing about cars. I don't like when I can probably intuitively understand this feels good to drive. But when you say fun car dynamics, what does that mean like what does that actually mean when you're like holding the wheel and turning?
Yeah, so like part of it would be, for instance, can you feel like, okay, I'm gonna take this corner a little bit fast and see how like nimble the car is. And in a car like this, you can do that at a street legal speed, and you're hanging a turn at like 35 miles an hour, and you're like, ooh, I took that kind of fast. That car like really responded, and it felt kind of nice. That 35-mile-an-hour corner in a like BMW M series car or something will feel like you just crawled through it, and like you barely steered the car. It will just feel like the car, you didn't do anything. The car just kind of took the corner by itself. To feel what that M car can do, which is their like performance tuning like division, to feel what that can do, you'll need to be taking the kind of corners that only exist on racetracks or like mountain roads.
Okay.
And that extends to things like accelerating. If you jam on the gas in a car like this, you're going to rear end somebody, almost certainly, and you're going to be past street legal speeds in the blink of an eye. If you step on the gas in like, again, going back to the Civic, you have a few seconds of like, vroom, I'm going. I'm a little race. I'm a little race car driver.
You're all of a sudden you're like a 4-year-old with a little little car revving, like those cars where you move it back and forth and then it creates like a little bit of momentum and then you let it go and like boom, like there's a little bit of the adult version of that you're describing.
Yeah, it's so like that's kind of a bit that's kind of the sales pitch for more semi-sports cars. Like true sports cars it's just tough to enjoy them driving day to day. And here's the other thing: the reason they're good sports cars you can't make a car that's really grippy on a racetrack and like corners really flattening, gives you like really good sense of traction. Like all of that means you have made trade-offs setting up the car that make it less appropriate and more exhausting as a car you're driving like to the grocery store. Like the suspensions will be stiffer. More of the road, more of the road feel will like transmit to you. But that literally means also like lots more bumps, judders being like sent to your back and your backside. And so a lot of these cars are not particularly enjoyable to be treating as a daily driver. And so you tend to, the more you look deeply within yourself, you're like, not only do I not need a sports car, I probably shouldn't have one for where I'm at in my life.
Fiesta.
By all accounts, a really well-regarded, fun little hatch. So yeah, so like that's probably what I'm talking about this stuff. And here's the other thing I will say. I don't know how much like empirical evidence there is about this stuff, but if you there's a school of thought that says more responsive, more interesting cars that like give you a sense of having more to do as a driver and having a little more control, being a little more engaged, that ends up being a bit safer, because the thing that causes accidents more than anything else is inattention, right? Like this is why turning cars into basically rolling smartphones has been such a dangerous and controversial thing to do. Is that like you are building in now as a matter of course with interacting with the car, a high level of distraction. But the same thing goes for really boring cars, because if you feel like the steering wheel is floating, the car just kind of is droning on those miles from the highway, like they're not pleasurable, they just sort of pass its distance, its time. It's very easy to have your mind wander, and you disengage from the entire experience of driving. And that means that when something comes up that does need your attention immediately, urgently, and maybe it should have had your attention before it even happened, you just missed it. You weren't engaged.
This the new car that we have, the Chrysler Pacifica, is the first time it's been a long time since I needed a rental car, because usually when I'm going places, flying somewhere these days, I'm either going somewhere for work and I don't need a car, or we're going to meet family and they're going to pick us up in a car. So just the most recent time that we rented a car is when we went to PAX. And then also when we bought this car, it was my first time experiencing, and I know this is like not a new feature, but it's like they weren't in cars that I was buying. Our 2014 Honda CR-V was like the lane feature that like kicks you back in if you drift a little bit. Have you experienced these?
Yeah, this is a thing that a lot of people just hate.
I don't know where I land on it yet. I haven't. I can imagine it maybe being useful for like a really long drive, as opposed to I'm going on the highway for 10 minutes to get on and then get off. I'm going to be doing a lot of lane management to begin with. But it's like really wild, the kind of, because if you're not familiar with it, basically, like as you start, if you're driving, and on the freeway and you're in a lane and you start to kind of drift over, it will literally nudge you back. Now, on our car, if you turn on the turning signal, it turns that feature off. It's like, hey, you have told us that you would like to move. We're not going to interfere, and you get zero resistance. And that, I think I can turn off the lane management. Like, the nice part about our car is it has the fancy touch interface, and anything you can do up there can also be managed with a button below, which was very critical to how I wanted my. What did you just pull up? Is this a Mini Coupe?
Yeah.
Look at that fun little car. Almost like a little. It's a very cartoonish aesthetic to
the checkered flag floor mats are killing me here. I just absolutely love it. But they're great little cars and surprisingly spacious, honestly, for their size. This one does feel though like it is like one of those fake cars that kids can play in at the mall.
Do you remember it was a really good N64 game, but like was it Beetle Adventure? Fuck, what was that game called? But it like has me like it has Strong's Beetle vibes.
Oh, look at those pedals.
Beetle
God, what a
Adventure
cute
Racing.
car. No wonder this did well. Well, it did okay at auction, you know, for a car with 75,000 miles on it. But yeah, Patrick, I haven't. So none of my cars have had sort of those more advanced driver aids,
Which are now
and
like fairly like what has become advanced. Like if you're like me, well, I think we're both like we're roughly like if you're buying a car once every decade, right? Like so then suddenly advanced features become standard, and then standard features seem advanced to you. And so I believe the lane management stuff is fairly standard on like most newish cars in the last couple of years. But it was my first time dealing with something like that. And at least it's, you know, you click a button, it goes off. Like when I first bought the car, it has all these parking sensors where it's like, yo, you're getting near something. And it's like, yeah, it's my garage. And it's the wall in my garage. And it's kind of frustrating because I actually don't mind the sensors when, for example, I'm taking my kids in and out of daycare where, yes, a lot of these cars have like fancy auto braking that'll like kick in if you're getting near somebody or a car. And I think ours does have that as well. But I don't mind the sensors when I'm in like an environment where like a 3-year-old could be running across the street. So I wish it had something where it's like, hey, this is a favorite place. Like I'm home. Like I don't like. I guess you would need it to have GPS built in, which ours does not. But like, I wish there was some way that I could just like, hey, I don't need this because I had to turn it off because my kids were like, that's really loud. Like you're right, it is really loud. So we're gonna turn off that fancy feature.
speaking really loud, people are saying that I'm way louder than you. I could
Is Rob
adjust
too
my
loud or am I not loud enough? That'll
right.
determine a little bit of how people feel, and then we can adjust from there. Rob is too loud. Do you want to just? Here, I can just do it in Discord.
All right, I'll bring my gain down a scotch too. Okay, that should. Okay.
You're down.
That
yeah,
should.
I'll bring myself up a tiny bit, and then we should be good to go. People can let us know how they feel.
So this is a Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglia, which is their sports version of their sedan, and the engine in it is basically a Ferrari V8 with 2 cylinders like cut off. And it's by all accounts very Italian. It's a very Italian car. And what does that mean?
Okay. Chill Shorts 57. Does it come with spaghetti? That'd be very funny to put in the back of these photos. Just a bunch of different Italian meals to just really emphasize.
Yeah. So, Car and Driver does long-term tests with cars where they put 40,000 miles on one, and this thing got a rave review when they first received it.
Oh no!
Unforgivable reliability issues. This article is just a chronicle of a car that when it is operating at like full, and look at that interior. Look at it. Who wouldn't want that?
That looks sick.
But by all accounts, this thing was basically
hold on, our honeymoon lasted 2,400 miles. 2,400 miles.
Yeah. And it just kept going from there. So this is one of those cars that like one might yearn for it. I kind of yearn for it, but I don't think
it couldn't be your main car, right? It would have to be. You're the kind of person that has 8 cars, maybe not 8, but like 4, and it's Sunday. We're going to brunch. Get that little bad boy out here. We're gonna put 7 miles on him.
I think if you've got like, say this is your third car, this is your toy. I'm not actually sure it's fun enough to be a toy. Fundamentally, this is a sports sedan. Okay. Like there's a degree of the built-in practicality here. I think you kind of just want it because you're like, I love that engine. I love the like things I do dig about it is That's a pretty stripped back interior by modern standards, and I kind of dig that. It's very like classic, and it's not like you're driving a smartphone. But yeah, I think that's kind of its curse is if it ends up in that third car territory, I'm not sure it's cool enough to be a
Yeah, that's
third
a fair
car.
point. That's a fair point.
If I'm looking at this, if I'm strongly considering this, then I'm strongly considering the Cadillac Blackwing. They have two versions of this, a V8 and a V6. Uh, they're both by all accounts really terrific, but the CT4V Blackwing is their V6, and this was basically like Cadillac, as they've done for years, trying to take dead aim on BMW's M series. And this year, with this model, the shot landed. Like by all accounts, these are more engaging, more fun cars to drive than BMW is making right now.
Look at those futuristic seats. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That was my Discord notification. So chat, don't sweat that one. I will look about. Hold on. Let me turn that off.
Yeah, it's
Oh, I can't because I'm using Rob. Okay, hold on. I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can turn off notification sounds in Discord itself.
yeah, it's fortunately I didn't I'm just on call with you, so I didn't hear that. But yeah, so this is like if I were like had my really just throw at getting like a sports car that can pull double duty, I think it's probably like the V6 Blackwing. Even though, and this is their high end, it's a Cadillac. And once you start looking at nice cars, you start being attuned to stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
That is a General Motors ass interior. And what I mean by that is they tend to source like, oh, you know what'd be a great synergy is we source the same buttons that we use in a range of cars. And so just like tons of anonymous, inoffensive little like black plastic buttons. But the problem is this is going up against cars that are going to have like brushed steel buttons with really nice like action on them and feel really good to press. And this is like, oh, is this a rental? Because it kind of gives off rental vibes. And that's not necessarily something you want to do in a sports Cadillac. And I know that sounds shallow, and it is. And like you like if you're a person of substance like I am, obviously you would look past that. And yet,
But I feel like once you invoke the word sports and use the term Cadillac, I don't know. Like, yes, those things don't register for me, are not on something I would want. But like once you're in that like luxury sort of sleek aesthetic category, you want the cool buttons. Like that seems like, look at those seats. Like you want the cool buttons.
The seats look great. Make the buttons match the seats, and they can't quite do it. And also, look at that infotainment system. What's that? What's going on there?
Like you want it bigger? Like it needs to be.
Oh, sorry. So let's take a look at so the cars this is going up against. Let's go back to let's not even be too fancy. Let's BMW 3 let's see, 328, is that it? Is that what we want? No, it's not. That's not it. BMW. Let's pull up BMW. Oh God, if like letting yourself into hell were no object, the thought of grabbing a 1980s BMW and just being like, yeah, I'm ready to maintain an antique.
You bought a normal like relatively recent car on here, but the thing that struck me browsing through this after you turned me on to it when you told me that you bought something here was if you put the price from low to high, you end up finding some just really interesting cars that don't actually cost that much. Do I want them? I'm not sure. But like when you're talking in like the $3,000 to $5,000 range and it just looks cool as shit, you're suddenly in a different category. Like Rob's version of buying a car that's a toy is like a bunch of money falls in his lap and he can spend $150,000. I think I would take the equivalent amount of money, and I just want to buy a bunch of car action figures that each cost like $5,000.
Yep.
And it's like, look at this little weirdo. I've got a whole lineup of weirdos at my house. That's what I would do. Yes, $1,500 cars. That is the market. And I'm going to ask you after we're finished with this. I want to look at some of these weirdos.
So just this is a bit of a side-by-side thing, but like, yeah, so that also has the billboard like infotainment display there, but even there it's wider. When a map goes up on that, it's going to be a little more readable. There's going to be a side panel with information. Like it just looks a little more nicely seated in the space. Like that's an example of, like, it's a small thing. These are similar interiors,
sure,
and yet BMW's looks like way more dressed up and
yes,
way more put together. And this is not a particularly like stunning BMW. Where you really be starting to compete is with the all right, let's look at okay, so here's a recent Mercedes coupe. This is the territory you're starting to get into now with interiors. You know, it's all nice materials, and the display sort of stretches across the dash. So yeah, like these are kind of the waters that Cadillac is swimming in a little bit, and these are the areas where they're still playing catch up. Now, the counter argument for the blackwing is the blackwing would destroy this car. Like it is more of a serious sports car. This is a luxury cruiser. But yeah. You wanted to look at cheap stuff?
Yeah, give me like just.
Oh man, let's see. I haven't done the. How do I sort lowest? I don't think I can.
No, you'd probably just have to look. I mean, look, we can start here. Like, just search for what would kind of car? Can you just look by like car manufacturer, and then maybe we can sort by price from there?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. Let's look at. Who do you want to look at, Patrick?
I don't know. You know better than me. I know nothing. I mean, I owned a Honda CRV. What's in Honda? Give me Hondas and give me the weird ones. Not a lot of Hondas.
All right.
Okay. But Rob, look at that 1994 Honda Acti. Look at that boy. Look at that 1996 Honda Acti Street 4-wheel. This is within. Yes, we're within the price range that I'm talking about.
We got like Chris Person now. We got a K van here.
What is that? What's the obsession with the K van?
All right, so when you talk about K cars, I wish there was something that gives you a sense of scale. They are deceptively small. Like,
okay,
they're smaller than they look. They are very low power, like cars that, like, basically they're only manufactured in Japan.
Oh, okay. I think I am scratching an old conversation because I wanted to ask, is that a Japanese car? Because I think we might have had this discussion at some point before.
Yeah. So, and someone's mentioning that K cars can be illegal to register in some states, but I think once something is antique, once it's been around for like 25 years, then it's pretty much like, what the hell? Like, by all means, have your collector's car. Take it anywhere.
So there's 6. What are some of the comments? What are they talking about this?
All right, people are already chatting. Haven't read a word from the listing, but it's sick.
It's like
people are just losing their minds over this handsome fella.
This is just begging for a Mystery Machine rap.
Oh man, look at Nicholas, little Nicholas Buzzkill. Read the Lemon Report though. Yeah, but this is something you should probably do when you're on these auction sites. They do so.
I like questions like, "What's the height limit?" Which is a reasonable question to ask for a car like this, for sure.
So the thing is, so the listing comes in with Doug Demuro, the man behind it all. He writes his little gloss on the listing, And then every listing begins the way Doug begins his videos with this is a sorry, have you seen the Doug Demuro video, Patrick?
No, you're gonna have to show me one. Machete Monkey, thank you. They have shown us how to sort by lowest price. We'll loop back around to that. Thank you for explaining how it works in the UI. So you genuinely like this guy. This isn't like,
I find him oddly compelling.
well, that's just YouTube, right?
Yeah, that's very true. So he just like looks at cars and sort of indexes their characteristics.
Do we know his story? Like, what is
his story's very well known. He was I think he may have been a Jalopnik commenter that became a Jalopnik writer.
Yes.
And the way he broke through is I think he pitched them on, hey, I bought the cheapest Ferrari I possibly could. I bought like a Ferrari that was selling at like distressed prices. Do you want me to blog about my experiences owning a Ferrari that like sold for less than a hatchback? And Jalopnik was like, yes. And that launched him on like sort of his regular shtick over there was I'm going to buy shitty cars that are way beyond what I can afford and talk about the experience of owning them if you're like an average Joe. And the joke is kind of like, you find a Ferrari for less than $30,000, you should be prepared for all hell to break loose. Like you were letting yourself in for something.
Next.
We'll just get through this.
You got it?
This is a Volkswagen R32 that's
This?
been converted to a Volkswagen Scirocco, which was never sold here in the United
Yeah,
States.
that's how'd they get this
I don't normally
Scirocco?
review modified cars, but this is a tremendously interesting and special one. So today I made an exception. I'm going to review this crazy Volkswagen and show you all of its many quirks and features.
Quirks and features. But first,
before I get started, big news, this Volkswagen Scirocco is currently for sale and it's being auctioned live on Cars and Bids. This is so cool. Like I said, we didn't
This
get
guy's
the Scirocco here
hand
in the United
movements
States,
are,
but this one is here and it's
what's the word?
legal.
What's the word you
I
used to
will
describe him
explain,
before?
and it has
Oddly
some
and
upgrades
oddly
that
and
you
Oddly
can
compelling.
get in
Oddly
Scirocco
compelling.
even where it
The
was
hand motions are
officially
part of it.
sold, and you can buy it on Cars and Bids. So once you finish watching,
he's not even like,
link in the description below to visit
he's fun, but he's not assessing things too much from like a performance standpoint. He's mostly assessing like interior build quality. He drives them around like the highway and some city streets for the most part. But he does these indexes of their quirks and features, and that's really the thing that's his shtick. And the thing he's really good at is he notices lots of details about how cars are put together, things designers may have put in there as like little nods to a manufacturer's past, etc. And so it is very easy to just fall down a rabbit hole with this guy and be like, yeah, no, tell me more about like this just completely random car.
The videos aren't that long either. Like, part of my turnoff with so many YouTube channels are, would you like to watch this hour and 15-minute video? It's like, no, I'd rather watch a TV show or a movie. 20 minutes? Nom 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 nom.
Yeah, he so these videos like really took off, and from there like you can start to track, like I think Auto Trader picks him up and like has him doing some video content, writing a column, and then he outgrows that because like, hey, why work for Auto Trader when you can be Auto Trader effectively? Like you can like, you have an audience that trusts you. You like, people now are going out of their way to let you know about like weird shit they found. So he creates Cars and Bids. And the thing that he is, and I alluded to this on the podcast, prior to this, probably the car auction website is, I think it's just BAT, bringatrailer.com. This is probably the online car auction website. And as you can see, it's a little older. But the big thing is Bring a Trailer tends to be a place that people bring genuine collectibles here. Like this is not a place where it's like, oh, I brought my like late model Mercedes or whatever. Like the thing that really gets pride of place are collectible cars. So like,
Wow.
You're probably not going to find this on Doug's website.
Okay.
Which is like this sort of race modified BMW. And the other thing is they operate at a tier of auction website that, like, I suspect it's a much more expensive business to run once you got auctions routinely, topping $150,000.
Right. Okay, let's sort this website. So if you go to the nav bar, then go to auctions, past results. Auctions is right next to the logo.
Oh yeah, past results. Yep.
And then
lowest
price. Okay.
Now we're talking.
1997 Toyota RAV4. I mean, I looked into a RAV4 Prime. They told me it would take me 18 months to get one.
Oh, look, and this one's got like Memorex tape colors on it. It looks like a VHS. It has sprouted wheels and is off and running.
Look at those colors. That's delightful.
What a fun car that someone bought 250,000 miles on it.
I mean, it looks like a car that would have 250,000 miles on it. It looks like a little gummy. Like, I just want to...
Yeah, this thing has lived. So like the other thing is this. I don't know, like usually like this thing may not have more, like we're pushing against the limits of like how long does a car physically hold up. Mm-hmm. And so whoever bought this, they got it for $2,000.
I feel like at $2,000, you're not, you know what you're in for, right? Like you're buying this knowing that if it breaks 6 months from now, well, that was fun for.
Yeah, that was.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like then just junk it and you move on with your life.
Exactly. Oh hell yeah. See, like the other thing is so Doug's thing is like Cars and Biz looks for what are cool cars, but what does cool mean?
Right.
At this point in the year of our Lord 2023, the 1991 Chrysler New Yorker is a cool car. And he's right.
That was what your like grandparents drove in the mid 90s. Like, I don't know if it was this car, but it was cars like it. You know what I mean? Like, grandma's coming to pick you up this afternoon. Yep. Like,
and grandma wants seats that feel like her nice couch that she keeps in plastic.
I mean, please ignore the cigarette holes from the ash. Ignore those. They're fine.
Oh
wow, those drink holders.
This is living. Unleaded fuel only, Patrick. Don't be like I'm putting leaded in here.
Look at the button. Like I'm always fascinated by the buttons on cars this old because I'm sure they are so satisfying to press because you have to know that. Sure, like I understand that cars these days or just button these days, like they may feel nice to push, but they don't make like clicky noises. Every one of these buttons has like a loud clicky noise. Like as you're pushing that on off, or if you scroll back to like the light buttons. A little further back, like those look like some big ass buttons that just make those clunk. Like clunk, 100%, and that feels so good.
Well, and somebody pointed out half these buttons are probably broken by now. Yeah, 100%. They were broken, and look at this though, luxury for the back seat as well. Is that OEM or is that a little custom job done as a hobby?
That looks like something somebody made. Can we scroll down to the description? Is it possible we could see if there are any modifications made to this bad boy?
A one-owner New Yorker. I don't know what to say. We certainly don't see these every day, but that's why I wanted it on the site. It looks nice, especially for a New Yorker from this area. And if you're into cars, it'll be hard to find a better one. God, there's so much happening.
Hold on, modifications. You go just a little further. Homemade rear seat cup holder
tray. Belt squeak from the engine. That's probably fine. And again, for $2,100,
yes!
Who gives a shit? Hang on, Rob, remember what was there was a car? I think Buick made it. It was like the 1980s idea of what the future car was going to be. And it had like tons of tech, but it was like 1980s, like put in a Buick tech. Does everyone remember what that car was called? Let us know as we might have been the Riviera.
The Riviera had a CRT. Someone's saying the Aston Martin Lagonda.
No,
Riata. The Buick Riata. The Buick Wildcat.
I think it might have been the Riviera. Honestly, I never heard. Have I heard of a Riata, or is that a foreign market thing? Because sometimes these things exist under different names in different parts of the world. Riata sounds like something that Buick would put out abroad, and then not have that come home as that name. Let's see, any other like, oh, these things just run forever.
Yeah, look at that classic Volvo wagon with great recent maintenance. Because like these are kind of cars. I think you're pointing out a difference in what we consider cool, like in the broader sense of cool. Like these cars would never appear in that other website, right? Unless they were not a car they'd be selling for
like
$2,000.
Pristine.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
like
right.
It was like almost like factory new, really gently used. Yeah.
But like the appeal here is like, no, like this is a car that has lived a life. I want a car that's seen some stuff. Oh, look at that wrap around the wheel there. Let's go.
Gotta protect that. But actually, it does raise the question: what's that steering wheel look like under? Nope, it's answered. Looks fine. I mean, it's a little scuffed up, but what the hell? Oh,
the little parking brake light, amazing.
And like these things, I feel like Volvo wagons of this vintage, I still see with shocking regularity. Like people do not let these things go.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, so Patrick, I'm pretty sure I've identified the perfect car.
Oh. Like objectively or for you?
Maybe objectively.
Okay.
Honestly, but
sure.
maybe just for all humans.
All right, let's go. The perfect car. Let's see it.
The Mercedes 450 wagon,
Ooh.
I think, is probably like for what's out there right now, for things I care about, it might be the car. It's got the third row of seats.
Oh, but they're in the they flip to the back. That's so cool. Who wouldn't get into one of those feeling like this is cool as shit? There's strong I'm in a cop car vibes. You know, like you've got a little fencing in between you and the rest of the car.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta keep the kids in their place. You know, can't have them coming over the wire. Yeah, like these are probably the cars that like I think are probably the like wildly comfortable, wildly practical. These are like sort of the dream car, the perfect long distance cruiser for your dogs, your luggage, to go visit the family, go visit your friends in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like this is probably it.
Oh, but it's got that horrible. Oh no, it's got the knob. No, it's a different knob than I was thinking of. This is similar to the car that you bought, where it's got the circular knob underneath the thing that kind of hangs over it. There's a car I drove in Seattle that has. It's more like a square, and you move the square forward and back to go between like drive and neutral. It's horrible. I was accidentally going into reverse in situations.
Oh, I don't like the sound of that.
No. I was like waiting to check into our hotel, had the kids in the car, and was just idly had my hand on there. I was like, why are we going backwards? I was like, oh, because I touched that damn thing again.
Yeah, I'm real curious how interfacing with one of these actually is going to feel. That's kind of that's a big open question. And as somebody pointed out, though, car UI is dog shit these days, and that's the problem across the board. It's all bad. This thing still has buttons. The newer Mercedes have gotten rid of those. It's all capacitive shit now. So now there's no single physical switch you can touch. I actually like my Mazda has a rotary knob, and I actually really like rotary knobs. I think they're kind of cool. But yeah, the trend in this sort of like interior UI design is not great. But just in terms of like a car that will feel good, fulfill a lot of missions really well, good cross country cruiser. Like this is probably it. This is the one that like, money no object. Hell yeah, I would get one of these, and I could and would and did put a bid on one that was pretty cheap. Because here's the other thing.
Didn't win that one.
Note. No, I maybe could have, but it was edging into territory where it's like you can't spend this money, man. Like you're not in a position to do this. You can't do it. The other thing I'll note here in 2020, I think this is the last year that Mercedes didn't put plastic body cladding on along the lower edge to make it look like a Subaru, and now they do, and I think it looks like shit. I don't want a Mercedes that looks like a Subaru, but the theory is that since the only station wagon Americans will buy is the Subaru, then you make your station wagon look like a Subaru.
That's very funny.
Mazdas. People are like, let's look. Nothing wrong with Subarus. It's just, if I'm gonna. Let's see, what do we got here?
Damn, a lot of a lot of Subarus. Hey, we get some S's in the chat for the Subaru owners of the people watching the stream. Rise up. Do not let Rob make you feel bad for your car preferences.
Well, not Thank you. Single. Okay, so yes, finally we come to an Outback. I just don't want a Subaru Outback.
They are incredible.
They're great cars. They're wildly popular. I'm just not that. That ain't me. That's not me.
Natter, there's a lot of lesbians here,
who our audience is. I'm sorry. I'm just saying I don't like Subarus. I am not implying anything about lesbians. Sorry, I just need to make that crystal clear. I approve of lesbians.
Put it on the box art.
I just don't like how some of them choose to live their lives when it comes to cars.
Well, definitely don't clip part of that quote and make it sound much worse.
Hang on, isn't there? So hang on, didn't? I feel like so yes, this is a famous piece of history.
I did not know this was a thing. Like an ad it was a specific ad campaign?
Yes. So like it was a thinly coded ad campaign where it was clear that Subaru saw gay women. And like in particular,
what does that mean? What does that mean for a car manufacturer to see you? Is it just like marketing pandering feels good and sometimes marketing works on you?
Well, so remember, we're talking about like the 90s, right? Like,
right. Okay. This is like the era of
the
like
country is wildly homophobic.
Right. All we've got is Ellen, and that
so
like that's it.
So when you have commercials or an ad campaign that like does a wink and a nod to like gals being pals and going on adventures,
I did not realize the how far back this specific. I think it was like in the last 10 years, like okay, like that. But 90s makes way more sense as it's actually bold for as low a bar as that is, but for in a car, right? Like cars, families, men.
Right.
That, like
so
rugged.
This is like the good vibes version, because like in this same era, manufacturers realize that there's tons of toxic shithead men who hate other people, hate their lives, feel small, feel angry. That's your SUV buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the dark side version of this is you realize that like there's a ton of people who are SUV owners and buyers, and they just don't know it yet because you haven't connected their like inchoate rage with with a purchasing decision. And so this is like kind of how SUVs end up being a massively popular and growing segment of the space, because it starts turning into, you're big and you don't give a shit and suck it, liberals. That's kind of the approach they took. There's a book about this, High and Mighty, I want to say. Yeah, about the about how car manufacturers discovered that there was this audience for SUVs, and they were awful people. But they would, because they were awful and because they were stupid and resentful, they were very easy to manipulate.
Huh.
Like, I'm sorry, I understand that. Like, there's good SUVs now. There's people who have like they're sensible purchases for a lot of folks. But like the origins of like how these things took over the roads. And let's be real. One reason a lot of people buy SUVs now is because you kind of feel like you're taking a risk if you are not also in a 5,000-pound vehicle.
Yeah, sure.
So you kind of feel like you need one so that if another SUV piles into you, your car just doesn't confetti around you.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I briefly mentioned this before we started the stream, but I haven't gotten to the conclusion of the saga because it's only really just begun. But so I think this is common in cars beyond just me. So we bought the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid 2023, and you don't get a choice on this. When you purchase the car, it comes with a Sirius XM trial, 3 months.
Yep.
You just get an email. This is a deal that Chrysler, I believe, has with Sirius XM, which is fine. Like, give me a trial. Not going to use it. I got wireless CarPlay in the car. My phone's going to connect, and I'm going to do everything there. It's got my stuff. It's got my kids' stuff. We're good to go. Well, the car, fortunately, boots into CarPlay almost instantaneously. You turn on the car, turns on the wireless connection, it's there. So you can see that in the background. But in front of that is going to foreground what Chrysler calls Uconnect, which is their UI that surrounds CarPlay. And that also you could use their media manager. I'm not going to, but it's there. But their UI can overlay on top of CarPlay. And sometimes that's useful. Like, I don't know, like you got a software update for your car because that's now a thing on a car like this. All right, what's different? Yada, yada. Well, there's a Sirius XM trial that just I dismiss it. I don't want it. Go away. Every time you turn on the car, it's there. And you have to, it doesn't just go away. I have to hit the X on it to make it go away. And so I Googled, hey.
Wait. Sorry, hang on. Run that back. Like, there's a nag message.
Yeah, every time you turn on the car, every time,
yeah.
in the infotainment system, it says, "Hey, Sirius XM trial. You want it? You want to use it?" I'm like, "No, I don't." And
on your system, every time it prompts you.
Every time, and it does. It is not dismissed unless you press the little X, and sometimes sometimes the little tap doesn't work.
Okay.
What?
It's just asking you to activate your trial.
Yes.
Okay. I suspect once you activate your trial, it will go away. But
Maybe.
There's a catch on the other side.
I'm possibly. I've been reading Reddit threads about this where people have had to go to customer service and threaten them with going to the Better Business Bureau unless they manually delete the account associated with the car, like in their system, to get these notifications to go away.
Jesus Christ.
It is possible. Some like the thing that scares me is that when I've read about it, not every version of this where it goes away works for people. So the version you're talking about, which is like, look, just give in to the nag, sign up, like let the trial go through, and then it should go away. For some people that has worked. For other people, it has not. And then you just have, like, it got to the point where there's this one guy in one of the Reddit threads who's like, I've done everything. I've owned this car for 3 years. I'm going to sell it because I'm fucking fed up with every time I turn on the car, I see a Sirius XM logo and a big red X that I need to press. And so I haven't fully gone down the rabbit hole to get this to go away. But I mean, there's a whole section where it's like, under settings, like notifications. I see that Sirius XM notification. I'm like, put that thing in the trash. And you do. But then you turn off your car and you turn it back on again. It's like, like, what about this time?
If this is still like it used to be, back when I bought my used Mazda, it had Sirius XM radio. At that point, I was like, this is where I was in my life. I was like, this car has keyless start. Wow, I'm living like a rich person now. This is like 2013. But it also had a Sirius XM like receiver, and so I activated the trial, and I was like, this is awesome. And then I learned what it cost, and I never paid for it. The trial works, and then the trial runs out. And because it's going through the car, it's not like they can really make you pay for it. At least at that point, it was just kind of we hope that you will come and sign up with us. But for your first taste being free was not a thing you really had to sign up for. I liked it so much that later I did get a Sirius XM subscription, which was a mistake. Because Sirius XM is like Planet Fitness in that you can sign up online. That's easy. You want to cancel?
Ooh.
Prepare for a like hour-long gauntlet on the phone as you move through one level of security at the at some sort of call center, and you just like are like. They're pulling out all the stops. Well, I need to talk to my supervisor before he has to make, he has special deals for people like you. And it's like, listen, I've got all my music on my phone now, right? I don't need Margaritaville radio. I can
There's
move
a playlist.
Yep. The other thing that kind of sucks about new cars is Mozilla did a study a few weeks ago. Basically talking about modern cars. Yeah, modern cars are a privacy nightmare. And this whole article is well worth reading because they're just logging tons of data about where the cars are going, how they're being used, the degree to which, like, how much are they using those interior mics? What are they using them for? It is absurd the degree to which these companies, all of them, are slicing and dicing the data. Like there is no good one.
Well, because this is like right along the same track of, I forget which car manufacturer recently got a bunch of heat for saying like, hey, we're going to drop CarPlay and Android Auto. We're going to build our own UI. And people are like, why? And it's like, well, because they're trying to drive up their what they call services revenue, which is that it's not enough to sell you the car. They want ongoing income from you going forward. That goes everywhere from we're going to charge you for heated seats even though they're built into the car and you got to pay for the upgrade to unlock, to stuff like this where it's like, oh, we've got the data here, we're going to harvest it. But it is all in service of exploiting the purchaser, the consumer, once they've actually made the purchase. And you think, that's it, I bought the car, this is my problem now. And it's like, no, They now want an ongoing relationship with you where they nickel and dime you on various features, sometimes visibly, like I'm paying for heated seats, or invisibly, like the data collection.
But then this vintage BMW E320 wagon won't do any of that. Sorry, did I say sorry? Mercedes, I mean. God, this is. Somebody told me to look at this. This is kind of homely. Oh man, this is so old school.
Rob, what if for E3 next? Well, there's not an E3 next year. I'm trying to think of something, but like, at the end of this year, we'll run Remap's finances. We'll probably have some leftover money, and it's like
we could go car auctioning.
What if we ended up doing whatever Remap's first in-person thing is? I don't know if it's going to be in Chicago or if it's going to be in Boston. It'll kind of depend on some practicalities, but like, buy a car and drive one of these out there. and just stream from it. Like, buy one of these $2,000 cars. If it breaks,
a company car.
We would make $2,000 worth of subs with people watching the streams. Don't you think? We'd cover our costs immediately. Remap buys a car and goes on a road trip. Come on!
Who wouldn't want to see us bid on an E63 wagon in real time?
Rob, the whole thing could be hysterical. Like, we could be streaming the auction, the purchase, and then we go on a little road trip. I'll fly out to you. You can drop me back off in Chicago.
I'll come get you.
Okay, you fly. Yeah, you come to me. Then we'll fly. And Rob, we'll go to Cincinnati.
We'll go to Cincinnati. This could be us. We could be tailgating out of the back of this car. For just oh, sorry. It bid $255,000. It didn't sell. Whoever's holding this car is like, this thing is worth more.
Wow.
Than this. So they set their reserve higher. It looks like this thing didn't go.
Super Antonio 64. The deal has to be that Patrick sets the budget, but Rob buys the car without telling Patrick what it is. That's very good. That's incredibly good. And then Rob just shows up with a car one day.
All right. The ground rules would be, it would have to be enough money to get a car that has reasonable modern safety features. This was the thing, by the way. This was a ground rule laid down by MK as well. When I was like, though, if you go further back, you can get some absolute classics for like $25,000. And she's like, they didn't put side impact airbags, and those weren't invented yet. And I was like, I wouldn't need them. Skill issue. And no.
Well, now suddenly if you're setting that budget, then we can't do this, Rob. I don't know that we're buying a $25,000 car.
It's true. But at the same time, like, we can't have a mild fender bender where like somebody is just ejected from the car at like 50 miles an hour. Yeah.
But what about that key van?
Oh yeah. Well, so somebody is pointing out, all American states appear to be getting more hostile to K cars. Because they're like not, to me that seems like bullshit. To me it seems like they're not safe on American roads because American roads are dominated by absurd cars. That would be my actual suspicion. There's nothing wrong with that. The other car that I like, honestly, like the perfect car for me in my life right now would probably be like the Mercedes A45. Mercedes makes a cool hatchback. And like, it's by all accounts awesome. It's still like, as performance cars go, it's fairly reasonable. I don't know what the non-AMG tuned version is, but they don't bring cool cars to America. Europeans get tons of awesome cars that we do not, because Europeans still buy wagons, they buy more hatchbacks, they buy tons of cool shit.
I've even noticed as I was doing the research for our car, like family-sized cars that were like plug-in hybrids or electric vehicles, even the ones that are coming out are starting in Europe and then coming here later. Right. Which I don't know how much of that is purchasing habits, how much of that is regulatory bodies, how much of that, whatever. But I noticed that over and over again. I was like, oh, this cool car's coming to the EU, and then maybe it'll come to the US.
People really want me to get a Volkswagen GTI.
What's that? One of these?
That's their sporty. That's their sporty hatchback. By all accounts, they're really fun performance cars. But
wow,
Volkswagen.
Rob, you're not divorced enough for a GTI.
It's so true. It's so true.
But what about a 1991 Volkswagen GTI?
Now it's a class. Doesn't that look great? Does that have enough? Can MK sign off on that one? She would absolutely not sign off on that. Patrick, okay, Patrick. Notice anything about this interior?
It has big red bars
the
in
roll
it.
Cage and the racing shell seat.
Dudes rock.
They do. You know what? They do. I should. This is probably a steal. It's sold for 12 grand. Absolutely. Congratulations. 194,000 miles shown. We may not know how many miles this thing actually logged.
What are some of the? Do we have any details on the modifications made to the interior as a result of this?
I bet we got a few. Manual cranking sunroof, by the way. Who doesn't want to crank their sunroof open? Modifications. Oh, they replaced an engine from the 2010 Passat.
Okay.
Custom welded exhaust. Don't know what that means, but all of this begins to scream, I'm not going to pass emissions.
Well, Rob, we won't have the car long enough to need to.
All of these, sway bar, the strip down, all of this says this is going to be a massively uncomfortable car to drive. Like, just excruciating.
Custom chromoly?
Oh my God, somebody noted power steering deleted. You don't want power steering interfering with your feel for the road.
Radio deleted. Air conditioning deleted.
Gotta save weight.
Headliner deleted. What does this mean? Is this a race car?
Yeah, yes, this is a race car. This car probably saw a lot of on-track action.
Okay.
So and that's the thing, right? Like, so when you see sometimes you will see somebody. Doug Demuro has a video on this, but everyone making car content eventually is like, well, what if you had a really sick race car that was street legal and you could just drive it around?
Yeah.
And everyone is like, oh, it's so much more miserable than you can possibly imagine. Like, you cannot fathom how harsh the ride is and how the thing that causes car sounds to not be deafening is that there's just shit tons of insulation all around you. Mm-hmm. If you strip all that out for weight, you have an engine going brrr, 2 feet in front of your face. And there's nothing between you and the tires going over the road. So it's all excruciating. Also, that's basically how my Mazda 3 sounds. What sucks is my 2016 Mazda 3, really good car. I do like it in a lot of ways. We're keeping it because it's so practical. But the thing is, 2016, it has all these problems. They've just gotten more and more annoying with time. 2017, Mazda fixed most of them. 2017, a year later, Mazda was like, this car's too fucking loud, and did a ton of things to make the car way more livable. Mm-hmm. And I just have this version that's kind of this weird valley in terms of how it rides.
Oh, tremendous.
People early on wanted me to look at Saabs.
I think what we actually need, Rob, is we need to find a car person who could give us a car that has the safety standards but is cool as shit. You know what we need someone to have done to make our partners feel good about our situation, but also be a cool car we could drive for a while. Who's that person? How do we get
someone
that
in our
car?
audience is that person?
Is someone in our audience that person that's got the cool $2,000 car that also will make us
Is this still up? I bet it's been fucked with, just as part of the ruin. Wait, no. Okay, whenever I think about Saabs, though, I think about this article from ClickHole. Which of my garbage sons are you? I've got some shit boys. My huge, beautiful wife gave me children who think and speak like the toilet. I have 4 garbage sons. The first is named Royce. The second son is named Preston. The third son is named Lance and Blake. 2 names for just 1 son. And the 4th son is the dreaded Laramie. Which of my toxic sons are you? Spray painted the word ISIS on the side of your dad's nice, wonderful car, so the United States Air Force had to come and blow up the beautiful car, which is a Saab. Opened the trunk of your nice dad's wonderful Saab and shouted the word fuck into it so many times that the resale value of the car went down by half. A t-shirt with your nice dad's face on the front, the words Saab owners die angry on the back. This is so brutal. Oh, I can't think of Saab without thinking about this sad article.
That's really good. That's tremendous.
All right, Patrick. Should we think about winding it down?
I guess so. Yeah, someone was trying to send a link to me for a cool car, but it hasn't come through. Chat do you want to suggest one last car that we look at? You want to type it out? The links don't work in the Twitch chat, but if there's one more rabbit hole you'd like us to go down, we can do one more if we get out of here. Let's see. Rob, do you want to look? Can you see the chat? Do you want to pick one?
Yeah, I can see it.
That calls out to you. You'll have a better sense of this than I will.
Yeah, let's see. A
couple people saying BRZ, the Subaru BRZ. Like multiple people saying the
so
BRZ.
this is the people's sports car. So Toyota makes a version as well. It's a collaborative thing they did with Toyota. I forget what the Toyota version is. Yeah, this is I probably can't fit into it. I've never been able to fit into a Mazda Miata, even though they're like some of those perfect cars ever made by all accounts. But the BRZ is this like tiny little sports car. They're pretty cheap and do all the things like, Patrick, earlier when I was saying like most sports cars are not fun to drive at street speeds.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the BRZ is not actually that fast. It's not gonna like dominate track days, but you will feel like just a god behind the wheel driving this thing.
And it gives even like the interior suggests that it's a car that is meant to feel fun to drive. You know what I mean? Like there's something about even the aesthetic of the interior that is like, hey, you're gonna have a good time in this car, which is not what all of them communicate.
Yeah, people point out it's not that cheap, but for the space for like this kind of sports car, like it's pretty accessible. Compared to some of the cars that you would be looking at in terms of sports coupes. I know somebody who bought one and they mentioned it was like they entered the secret world of street racing. Not because they were street racing in it, but just like the car looks so cool and it's so legit that people suddenly start pulling up to you at stoplights and like revving their engines and be like, want to go racing?
They start making assumptions about your car driving behavior.
Yeah, and it's like, man, I'm just here in my Subaru. And people are like, you're here to go racing.
I'll see.
And this is not
parking
really
lot down the street, 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, this is also like has a nice transmission. I strongly considered getting a manual transmission. But a friend of mine who used to live this life, I have a friend who like legitimately did hot hatchbacks was like his entire life through his 20s. Like he rolled with groups of friends who like everyone had their tricked out like Fiestas and Volkswagens, etc. And he was like, those cars are fucking awesome until you realize like how much time you spend in traffic. And you're just sitting there in bumper to bumper shifting to go like 10 feet forward. And then you got to like re-engage the clutch and pop a neutral and you sit there. And so like this is the real thing where it's like manual transmissions are fucking awesome.
Never
and
used
then
one. Never used one.
You may come to hate them.
I think I used one of the first times that I learned how to drive. Like one of my aunts, who's like not an aunt but is an aunt, sort of thing. And
yeah,
she had a house out on a farm with her partner, and I must have been 14. She's like, "You want to go drive a car?" I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, just nobody gives a shit out here. We're in the middle of nowhere." And she had a manual transmission, and that was like my first instance of being in a car and like trying to figure it out. And I think after that, my parents never owned manual transmission cars. It was all automatic, so I just never had any experience with one.
They're really fun. And by the way, like the Cadillac Blackwing I mentioned earlier, they do make like it has a stick if you want it, and by all accounts, it's a great transmission. The thing about it is, yeah, I work from home, but the problem is like when I do have to go run errands in this region, traffic is really bad. Like escaping traffic is if you're driving after 6 a.m., and before like 8 p.m., like you're gonna be in some kind of traffic, especially if you're like heading down toward Boston. It can be like I have a suspicion that I would not enjoy the experience of having a stick, and what I would much rather have is a posh drive, you know.
Agreed. Well, thanks everyone for watching us browse this weird cards and bids website. This is all an extension of a podcast that's available if you are a foundation tier supporter of Remap. We are slowly starting to expand out what that tier is, what's going to live there. We'll have more to reveal about how all this kind of connects together in the near future. But if you want to listen to HOA, which is a new series that Rob and I are doing, but also we're gonna start bringing in some guests and other folks. It's not just Rob and I talking. We've just been kind of feeling out how the series works and see how the audience feels about it. But the reaction has been really enthusiastic. Like I'm pretty sure the next episode is just gonna be like questions because we got so many from the first wave and we just did not have a chance to address too many of them in the new episode. The first episode that we did in late August was about essentially setting the stage for the premise of the podcast, which is Rob, renting a condo, then purchasing that condo because it made sense for the stage of life he was in, but thinking it was the in-between. I was like, well, we'll have this. It's an asset, and then hopefully we can buy a house. And then the housing market went to shit. And so it's kind of about like to show, not necessarily about like buying property or cars, but about the kind of like where you are in your stage of life and how you look around the things around you, whether it's an apartment or a car, and like your relationship with those things. So we're feeling that out, and maybe, just maybe, by the time we kind of get some things in order, Rob, you and I need to. I've got it all lined up for next week for us to talk to a certain person.
Oh my
in
God.
Buffalo. That if you've watched some of these streams, maybe we fell in love with a certain individual that heated their driveway, and we wondered what could that be like. And maybe Rob and I.
These are secrets to protecting your investment, your automotive investment, making the experience that much more pleasurable.
Exactly. There's the through line. So like if you are unable to subscribe to the foundation tier, totally cool. Don't sweat it. There are extensions like this stream, or maybe interviewing a person like that'll kind of rotate through the other things that we're doing here at Remap. So you'll be able to hear a little bit of what's going on, even if you can't listen to that original podcast. But that's going to do it. We recorded a banger of an episode of Remap Radio this morning that was long enough that I half considered not doing this stream because I was like, Rob, I need to lie down after doing a 2-hour and 45-minute podcast with one Austin Walker, who this week I sent to go play Dragon's Dogma 2. There was an opportunity for Capcom to have one of us over to go play Dragon's Dogma 2, and I said, God, I hope Austin is free to do this. And it turns out that he was, and was able to come and relay his experience with that. The thing is, that was the whole premise of booking Austin, and we didn't get to Dragon's Dogma 2 until about an hour and 45 minutes into the podcast. And then there was a long Dragon's Dogma 2 discussion. So that's the kind of podcast you're looking at this week. We've got a backup producer that is handling the audio this week until Kato is feeling better. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later. But whatever we're doing this week and next, we've got someone lined up to help us take care of that. So HOA episode 2 is out now. Remap Radio will be out sometime tomorrow. And then the last thing we'll be doing this week as we transition to having Ren as a collaborator on a less frequent basis. He'll be coming through for podcasts and streams every once in a while. But we're moving in sort of a different phase of Remap as she moves into a different phase as well. We're going to be logging on to Elden Ring, talking a little bit about the video essay that Ren has been working on. That video is not up yet, despite Ren's best efforts. Hopefully it'll be up by tomorrow. She ran into some snags in the editing process. If you've had any experience in video editing, you know how that is, and she's trying to get this first one out the door. you can support her efforts there over at patreon.com/Ren or Raven. But that video will hopefully be out in the next day or so, if not in the next couple of days. But as a kind of farewell to this era of Ren, we're going to load into Elden Ring, talk about the video she's working on, and also try and face down her greatest threat, which is that that fucking Millennia fight in Elden Ring, which I've been needling her about for the better part of 18 months because she claims she can beat it and just chooses not to. So we're going to find out if that can happen or not. So tune into that tomorrow. Come say, not goodbye, but just as Remap kind of shifts into a different gear, so to speak, I can have that stream and I'll do that together. So that's Remap this week. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm gonna go over. Kato's not taking us out, so I have to take us out. So I'm gonna hit this button, and then we're gonna go away. Bye.